Now, Pa, Tailteann Cup quarter-final this weekend against Laois this Saturday, 3 o'clock in the TUS Gaelic Grounds. What's your overall reading of the game, I suppose, 3 or 4 days out?
Um, it's 50-50, to be honest with you. I was looking at the preliminary quarterfinals last weekend, and no matter what way you kind of saw it, especially with the way the draw, you couldn't meet teams that you'd already played in the group. No matter what way you looked at it, it was going to be a good team coming through out of it. Did I think Laois were going to beat Fermanagh? I didn't write them off, but you'd have gone for Fermanagh, especially that Laois had to travel up there, and it's never easy to go up to the Ulster counties and come away with a win, especially Fermanagh at home of such a good record. And for them to do that, it's impressive. So it's a game that Limerick can win. It's a game that Limerick have at home in the Gaelic Grounds where they've played well over the last 2 years. So if you'd have said to Mark Fitz and the lads at the start of this competition, you're going to have a home quarter final to get to an All Ireland semi final in it, they'd have definitely taken it. So it's just about turning up now and performing on Saturday.
How hard would it be to, just forget about that Wicklow performance? It was a dead rubber, so it didn't really make much difference. But Limerick come into the game off the back of a loss, Laois coming in off the back of a win. So you do have to park that Wicklow result.
Yeah, if you just take Laois, first of all, like it's their first win in the competition, which is mad. Like they had 2 draws and a loss in the group and got out of it and went up there and won. And you really can't put a figure on how important that is for a group to get a win. Especially, I can imagine that bus home and that dressing room afterwards, they were buzzing. Like I just think back to us in 2011 when we were having a desperate year and we played Offaly inside the Gaelic Grounds and nobody gave us a hope. And we won that match, and the buzz you get off of it. Like I know Laois are going out now on their 3rd week in a row, and people will say they're tired. Yeah, but you're never tired when you're winning. That's the thing. So when they won last week, they'll be buzzing and training this week, coming down. It's a short trip from down the road. From Port Laois down to here, it's very quick, all motorway. So it's not like they'll be killed from that either. So they'll be buzzing for it. Limerick, on the other hand, they've had a very good Tailteann up until the last round. We all know what that they probably took their eye off the ball there. Traveling up to Port Laois with 1 or 2 changes. It wasn't wholesale changes, so it wasn't like the whole team was changed. There was still 12, 13 lads there who'd be expected to get a starting place on Saturday. So look, I think Mark Fitz, you could see it in his demeanour after the game. He realised, and it's something that we've realised a long time with any Limerick football team. Like if you're not on it on the day, like the margins of performance drop way off. So you'd hope that just the realization on the day that it wasn't that important a game, that the attitude will be much different on Saturday. Because look, it is a huge game. You've an All Ireland semi final in Croke Park as your goal, as your reward. If you turn up and perform, and given the performance against Clare and Munster, against the very impressive performances against Longford and Carlow, you would hope that's the Limerick that are going to rock onto the Gaelic Grounds on Saturday.
Yeah, you mentioned there, but it's important to come into the game as winning. But at the same time, does the last to Wicklow and also Laois's kind of surprise win over Fermanagh refocus the minds for Limerick?
It has to, yeah. Like there's nothing like a loss to get the coaching and management and even the players to examine. Okay, we need to get back to what got us to this level, And losses, what's it? You win or you learn, and you'd hope that they learned a lot from Wicklow, especially around. Look, I've said it. It's just about the attitude. Like when these lads go at it properly, and we've seen it over the last couple of years what they're capable of. They have a few players back. I know Ian got back. Ian Corbett got a start against Wicklow. There might be a worry around one of the full back line for the next day, which is unfortunate because Laois's strongest line looks to be their full forward line. They have now Carl, Owen Lowry, Paul Kingston up in their forwards. Laois have always had very, very good forwards. It's just, I suppose, they're coming in now. They didn't rack up a massive score against Fermanagh, but you're never going to, the way they play. So they're always very tight. Getting the win up there, you could see in the reaction afterwards from the highlights that were on the Sunday game. Like they were buzzing after it. Billy Sheehan's probably lighting it up now inside and training about coming down to Limerick. Like Laois will never fear Limerick. That's just the way it is. They could be losing every match the whole year and they'll come down expecting to win. But from Limerick's point of view, they travelled up to Laois last year in a really crucial game in the league, and they got a win there. Now, I know the Laois team is a bit different, but that Limerick team, a lot of those fellas are left, and they know they can do it. But it's one thing knowing it. They have to turn up now and perform. And you'd hope the Wicklow result was just one that gave a bit of a boot and a wake-up call to say, okay, lads, we need to get back to what it got us here. And I'm sure they will, because they had that's going to be 2 week gap between that game and then this game.
Matt, I'll throw it over to you there.
Yeah, I was just thinking there, Pa, and you were referencing, and it was a very, very good win in Fermanagh, because I suppose it's fair to say, reading some of the narrative before, the Tailteann Cup, Fermanagh would be one of the fenced sides in it. But how much did the sending off of Ryan Jones before half time from Fermanagh open the door for Laois? And
it
they
was
still
massive.
only won by 2 points.
Yeah, and actually, when I saw that and I saw Laois were up at half time, I said, okay, that game is done now, because they're down a man for the majority of the game, and they're down a couple. I think they were down. Laois were up 2 points at half time, and in that third quarter, then Fermanagh came out and just rattled off 3 or 4 scores, went up 2, and you're kind of thinking, okay, is that the end of Laois's kind of run at it? But I suppose it shows that they were anxious to keep in this competition. Like, they could have easily said, okay, it's just not running for us today. We've gotten the extra man up. We were leading and now we're behind. And I think Mark Timmins, who's starting to 37, like, so he's putting a lot of us to shame, still playing inter-county at his age, but he scored some vital goals from in recent times, and that gives him the boost. But yeah, having the extra man on a day like that with so much heat around the place, I was just reading, it was a very hot day up there. Like, it's a massive thing. And just coming back to our own side, like, discipline is going to be a crucial thing on Saturday, because looking through the Tailteann Cup, I don't know what it is. There seems to be a lot more red cards and black cards being dished out in the Tailteann than there is in the Sam Maguire. So I don't know what that's down to, but you just can't afford in the open spaces of the Gaelic Grounds, especially, to be down a man, because it's hard enough to chase the ball down when you've got 15 and 15. But if you're down a man on Saturday, it's a massive pitch inside there. Like, it feels great when you have the ball inside there, but it feels desperate when you're chasing it. And to be fair to Limerick, they have worked over the last couple of years on getting possession of their own kickouts in particular, and like, that'll be a massive thing on Saturday again. And yeah, just come back to your point. Look, it was a great win from up there. They were helped with the extra man. Limerick certainly don't need to be helping them out with that scenario on Saturday.
But Pa, you would have to say, I suppose, it was the one bright spark in what was to date a very disappointing year to date for Laois. Like, because I suppose starting off in the league, they were firm favourites to come out of Division 4. That didn't happen. They ran up against Dublin then in the Leinster Championship, and we know what happened there. And as you rightly pointed out, they didn't win a game in the group stages. So it's very, very hard to determine where Laois are at. And I take your point that there is no medicine like winning. And but, you know, they've had a very indifferent season. Not that we've had a barnstorming season or anything like that. Far from it. But, like, we certainly seem to turn a corner when we faced there in the Munster Championship.
Yeah, I'd agree with you around Laois. Like, they would have been definitely everyone's pick to get out of Division 4. Like, and they actually started, I remember, with they went up to Sligo and they beat them by 2 goals above there. And you were definitely saying, okay, that's the game now. That was the banana skin. But then I suppose they lost against Wicklow at home, and they went up to Leitrim and lost, and they lost out head-to-head then against Wicklow, getting out of the group. And that must have been a massive, massive blow to the group, especially after starting with a win in Sligo. And like you said, they had an early win in Leinster, and then they got they lost by 20, 25 or 6 points against Dublin. And then they came out in the Tailteann and they do what they did in the group stages, and then they go to Fermanagh. So but coming back to the last game they played was a win in a knockout game. And it's very easy to forget about everything else that happened before that if you're a player, because all you can see is that, okay, I'm buzzing now, we're on the road, we're one match away from. That's the thing, the carrot for both teams is a day out in Croke Park, a double header with the Tailteann Cup semi-finals, which is, if you'd have said to me going into this, what's the aim for Limerick? What does a good Tailteann Cup look like for Limerick? I just said getting to semi-final would have been I know people say, okay, you have to win it if you're in it, but getting to semi-final would have been a massive thing, I would have said, to get to that level, to get to Croke Park again for this group after being there last year in the league final. Like, a quarter-final, being honest, was not the minimum, but it was what we expected of Limerick, having seen them over the years. But getting to a semi-final and winning that match on Saturday I would regard as a successful end to the season. You don't want it to end there if you get there, obviously, but it's a great opportunity. Look, they don't have to go on the road. They're at home on a pitch they're very comfortable with. They've played there loads of times over the last 2 years. They found a bit of form. There's players coming back. The likes of 𝘬𝘭𝘴 is back. You're just looking to turn up and perform. That's the thing, because you definitely don't want to end the year with any regrets. If you play well and you lose, you take it. But if Limerick play well on Saturday, I think the result will look after itself, I'd hope.
And do you think the result will look after itself?
Look, if they do what they like, the good thing about the system they've played, Jack, over the last 2 years is there's nothing fancy to it. Like they try and keep their own possession from their own kickouts. They press the opposition's kickouts when they have it. They don't generally waste the ball. Against Clare was a big return to form. Like that game showed real, like, okay, this is the Limerick that we've seen in 2022, that we saw regularly in 2022, like that you could actually say there was consistency of performance. And that was there again against Longford and Carlow. I wouldn't write off the Wicklow game at all. You know, it is what it is. Didn't turn up and didn't perform, so that would have been a blot on the copybook. But it's a blot on the copybook that you can learn from. And I'm sure Mark Fitz and the lads will be saying, look, lads, this is what happens when we're not at it, we're not tuned in. And the carrot being what it is of a Croke Park semi-final, an All-Ireland semi-final in Croke Park, if you're not tuned in for the match Saturday with that in mind, you never will be. And having the extra bit of experience back around the place hopefully will help.